so much anymore. Or disclaimer. But anyway, hey, I am Johnny Sinister. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. As always, I am joined by the foul-mouthed Bobbitt. What's going on, Mr. Bobbitt?
Pretty good. Apparently a CDI is bigger than a New York City block. Who knew?
Okay, then. And as always, we have Mr. J.P. Baker, the Cold Bone Show, and Miss Tattooed Mistress. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. I have a little bit of a headache from today, but I'm okay.
I'm doing pretty good today, too.
Awesome. We don't have Trek here yet, but that's okay. I'm sure he will make a very late appearance. He's such a fucking diva. God damn.
I know.
Always fucking late. Now, god damn it. So, anyway, this is episode 30, where Wrestling Memories is Jericho. At this section of the Monday Night War, where they heavily focus on the inspiration for the timeout gimmick, Chris Jericho. Now, I'm going to be dead honest with you, between you, me, and the YouTube chat and all the wonderful replay viewers that we get. This one was a little bit lackluster compared to the one that we had last week, which was the Goldberg one. Didn't really get as much out of it, in my opinion.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We all know about Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
You could pretty much argue that not only was he one of the big key players in the Attitude Era, but he was also, and still is, one of the big key players in the wrestling world today. Look at what he's doing. He is almost 50 years old. He keeps himself in shape, and he's still doing. He just beat one of the top stars in all of wrestling, who is probably 15 years his junior, in Naito, for the Intercontinental IWGP title. That's pretty fucking impressive. Exactly. And he's only wrestled twice. He doesn't fucking need to wrestle 320 days a fucking year.
Right. So, to that point,
have a nice night, guys.
This has been a quick episode of Wrestling Memories. Tune in next time. I'm just kidding. And the reason why it's so straightforward, I think, and why this episode really was kind of, not in a sense lackluster, but you kind of already knew. I mean, it's been very well documented that Jericho always wanted to be in WWE. Mm-hmm. And that was never a hidden fact. But he couldn't get into the WWE because at the time it was still the land of the big men.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
And small guys were not really seen as viable wrestlers. So Chris Jericho went to Japan, Mexico, made a name for himself there. And it was then that he was contacted by Eric Bischoff.
Right.
And offered him a place in WCW. At this time, even Chris Jericho admitted himself that he really didn't want to go to WCW, but if it would get him on TV, he would go there and use that platform to get his name out there to hopefully that Vince would see him. Mm-hmm. So Chris Jericho's end game was always the WWE. He always wanted to go there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Chris Jericho at that time, and of course, we know him now. I mean, he's had multiple different title reigns, but he actually came in as a cruiserweight in WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question I have for you guys is, given his path, and we'll get into his path to WWE throughout the show, but taking it as a whole, do you think it was a mistake that WWE didn't jump on him sooner, or do you think the cards played itself right?
I think the cards played themselves right, because if he did not have the experience with WCW, we would not have gotten he would not have gotten the training he would have needed on the mic.
And I was just gonna make that point. I'm gonna make this point. I'm pretty sure it's one of your questions or one of the highlights of. It's one of the highlights of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The night he debuted.
Right, which we're going to get into that.
And with what he did in WCW, you've seen glimpses of what. And Eric Bischoff, listen to the 83 Weeks episode. It's all about Chris Jericho. I think it's like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And he talks about how Chris Jericho always had these ideas of what he wanted to do with his character. So he knew, he studied the business, and he's still studying the business today.
Yeah.
So he's one of those guys that I guarantee you, if he was to start a promotion, it would work. Because he knows the business like the back of his hand. He could do it. He could be one of those guys. In fact, if WWE gave him a job as a booker or whatever, I would hire that motherfucker right on the fucking spot. I wouldn't even need to fucking interview this guy. I'd be like, you are fucking hired. Because a lot of his shit was his idea. Like, the list thing is his fucking idea.
Right.
And how over is that? People are still doing it. You kind of did a little gimmick like that. People are using it. It's one of those things.
Right. Well, like, everybody here kind of knows the story. It's a little off topic of the wrestling memories, but, I was looking forward to this episode because, Chris Jericho is the reason the timeout gimmick came to life, is because it was, when they had given me Mod, and we started doing it, I was like, hey, I could actually do something with this, and it became a parody of the list of Jericho, which, I got to give credit where credit is due. Jericho is the actual inspiration for it. Bobby, what do you think?
I say this: the cards play the way that they did, and because if it wasn't for WCW, we wouldn't have 205 Live today. WWE kind of took that idea from WCW, the whole Cruiserweight division. So Jericho was in a prime spot the way he did it. The way he did it was smart, because if he would have, if there was no WCW, there would be no Chris Jericho today. He would still be in New Japan, still doing whatever. Mm-hmm. Hell, he would have been an IWGP champion. We will never know that, but the way he did it was really smart.
So when he came around in 1996, and this was around the time that WCW was beating WWE, and even though Chris Jericho wanted to go to WWE, he's like, well, if I'm going to kick their ass, we're going to kick their ass. However, Jericho kind of at the beginning didn't feel like he get to play his character, because he wasn't getting over with the fans so much at the beginning, because he was playing that straight nose, good goody two shoes, good guy, and so he was having trouble getting over. It wasn't until they let him go heel that he really started to get over with the audience. Now, this is more, not so much that time frame, but opinion. Is Jericho another one of those guys that can be a face and a heel at the same time, or did you always view him more as a heel, a better heel than a face?
Oh, he's definitely one of those tweeners.
I'm gonna go with he can do both. There is no doubt in my fucking mind. If WWE would let let people do their be in different promotions. He could be a face in one promotion and be a heel in another.
Yep.
Easily. He's that fucking good, people. He even though he isn't considered the number one guy, he was never considered the number one guy. My God, could he have been? Yes, he could very easily have been.
Very much so, in fact.
If it wasn't for The Rock and Stone Cold, I guarantee it, Vince would have pushed him to the fucking moon. He would have been the man for years to come.
Well, and there for a short time, which we'll get into a little bit, is he was the man.
Yes.
There for a short amount of time. Bobby, what do you think? Was he better as a heel, or could he do both?
Oh, dude, he can do both. Like, dude, he got a fucking potted plant over.
Yes.
That's how good this guy is. And like the shit he's doing in New Japan right now, it's fucking glorious.
Are you talking about Mitch?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. They got Mitch.
He's the only guy I know that can get a freaking potted plant over.
Yeah, he destroyed the potted plant, and people were upset because he destroyed that potted plant.
Exactly.
Chris Jericho, now we're going a little bit outside of the time frame here, but I will say this: Chris Jericho has been part of some of the greatest moments ever in wrestling. In fact, he was a catalyst for a lot of them.
Hold on a second. What do you mean he buried himself? When did he bury himself when he got to WWE? Because as soon as we're going to talk about it, when he got to WWE, the day he debuted, he shut the fucking Rock up. The Rock, he buried the Rock his very first fucking night. So don't fucking tell me he got fucking buried, dude. It's not even close. But go ahead, Johnny. I'm sorry.
I think I know what he's talking about. We'll get to that when we get to that point.
No, because a lot of the heat you're talking about there, Mega Super Lion, that was all storyline.
Yes.
Go
ahead, Johnny.
So, Chris Jericho, as we had stated, had all these ideas and was coming up with all this stuff. And he started really getting over in WCW. And this is, excuse me, this is where a lot of the frustration starts setting in for Chris Jericho. Because he was so over in the WCW crowds but they wouldn't push him. He was at that proverbial glass ceiling that he just they wouldn't let him break through it. Which, like I said, obviously led to frustration and resentment towards WCW. In fact, Eric Bischoff even stated that was around the time that Chris Jericho and him were at odds in. So the deal with Chris Jericho is that they weren't watching him, so they just let him do whatever he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point that the one time that he really finally got his chance was when he was going to be able to take on with Bill Goldberg. Some of his best work. And he's like, do it. They just let him go.
Yep.
Chris Jericho took that, but then it fizzled out because Goldberg didn't like it.
Yep.
And anytime Chris Jericho worked with the NWO, it was always a problem. So the issue that I could see what that was is it kind of does go back to the previous episode. Bill Goldberg thought it didn't make sense for Chris Jericho to beat him or for him to fight Chris Jericho.
Because again, he was that cruiserweight.
Even though in a shoot fight, Chris Jericho kicked his ass.
Yes.
Which I always thought was funny. So obviously, this leads to a lot of frustration. to where he finally contacts Vince McMahon. Now, before we get into the obvious transition of when he starts going into WWE, do you guys think that, and I'm pretty sure the answer is a resounding yes, but I'm still going to ask it, did WCW really drop the ball with Chris Jericho?
Oh, kidding me?
Yeah.
Look at what he's again, and I'm going outside of the timeline, but look at what he's doing today. Look at what he has done. Of course, WCW is this could be another one of those things where he is one of those guys that left the company. This is when WCW just took an absolute shit on itself.
Yep.
Because they let possibly one of their future biggest superstars walk right out the door.
Because again, they were more focused on their older talent, which they knew worked.
And again, I'm going to go back to the 83 weeks thing again with because he Eric Bischoff himself said it was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in letting Chris Jericho go.
Mm-hmm. And now we're going to do a bit of a comparison.
Okay.
Because all throughout this episode, Chris Jericho constantly mentioned how much he wanted to be in WWE.
Yep.
Because he wanted to become that big star. And he had all these ideas that he wanted to do. Look at what that says about the superstars or the wrestlers back in those days. They wanted to become the best at their craft.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wanted to entertain the fans. Where you see today, a lot of your wrestlers that come to the WWE are just coming there because the money's better.
Yep.
They become complacent.
Mm-hmm.
There's no drive to, with the exception of a few wrestlers there in the company, but the majority all feel they're at the game. They don't have to. They can just sit there, collect the paycheck, just do what they're told. Chris Jericho constantly bucked the system. In fact, a lot of the wrestlers back in those days bucked the system and fought for what they believed was the right thing to do.
Yep. I mean, I think now I remember what Lionheart's talking about. There was, what was it, like 2 or 3 months where he was getting buried, losing matches because he was getting, now I remember, he was getting backstage heat, but it wasn't that kind of look at where that backstage heat got him.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that for a second, man. Look at where that got him. Look at all the matches that he got to fucking do. Do you think I think he did that on purpose. I really do. He ain't gonna say that in his book because it's just making him look good. I'm telling you right now, I think Chris Jericho did that shit on purpose just so he could get those matches.
A lot of it was the fact that he was a WCW guy. They didn't view him as a WWE guy.
No.
And so it was not that they hated Chris Jericho. It was they were whipping our ass, and this guy comes over. Yeah, you know, there's a little bit of an animosity deal there. So Chris Jericho, still under contract with WCW, goes to Vince McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince McMahon, at the time, very smartly worked around loopholes to make sure that Chris Jericho could be there, but still not break his contractual obligations.
Correct.
Chris Jericho even admitted at this time when he went back and tried to negotiate with Bischoff wouldn't budge and basically punished him, taking him off TV. But in hindsight, Chris Jericho got injured, so he was off for those 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of hindsight. So during this time, they start, in my opinion, one of the best debuts they have ever done. The Millennium. The timing of this could not have been more perfect.
No, absolutely not.
The new millennium was on the rise. People were freaking out about the Y2K scenario. So Chris Jericho, not Vince, Chris Jericho comes up with the idea for the Millennium Clock, and have these vignettes of this clock counting down. And then they come in, and it ends on The Rock's promo, who arguably at this time, in I think it was 1999 when he debuted in October, was the biggest star in WWE. The top guy.
Right.
And it ends, and the music hits. Nothing's ever heard. Nobody's heard the song. They didn't know it was him. And when he shows up, thunderous cheers.
Yep.
And cuts one of the best intro debut promos ever.
And if I remember correctly, because that's where I kind of fell asleep watching it last night. Didn't he say that he was nervous as all beat hell to do that because he didn't know if it was going to work? Vince was worried it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And because he was going up against one of the best mouths in the fucking business.
That he was.
In fact, I'm going to say it right now, The Rock is one of the best mouth, is the best mouth in the business that the business has probably ever fucking seen. He went up against him, and he shut The Rock up. I mean, he literally, The Rock stood there, and I think, didn't The Rock even say he just kind of stood there like, wow.
Yeah, he did.
Right, I mean, he eventually did get the comeuppance.
Oh, of course he did.
Because it is The Rock, but for that first few minutes, Jericho was owning The Rock.
Mm-hmm. In a promo.
This WCW guy.
In a promo. I keep saying that, but in a promo.
Lionheart, you ever call me that again, I will ban your ass so fucking quick, your fucking head will spin.
What did he say? He called you Michael Colmar.
Because of saying thunderous applause. Which they were thunderous applause. Because of the entire build-up of the countdown clock.
The roof literally, not literally, but the roof blew off the fucking building. So it was thunderous applause. Jesus Christ. Anyway, go on.
So,
Vintage.
So, now, this wasn't without the problems, because this is when we really see the difference between WCW style of wrestling and WWE. Mm-hmm. Chris Jericho had trouble adapting.
He did.
And so he, in the ring, and especially in the ring, so they had to pull him back a little bit.
They beat him.
And then, one of the best stories that you could ever see was the undisputed champion. They were going to unite the belt. Mm-hmm. The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was going to be The Rock versus Chris Jericho, and Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in that night, Stone Cold beats Kurt Angle, and then you have The Rock versus Jericho. Jericho pins The Rock.
Yep. Well, didn't The Rock go first? Didn't The Rock and Jericho go first in that?
No.
Okay.
No, they did not
I know.
first.
I just watched it like last week, I think, but I can't remember who went first. I thought it was Jericho and Rock. Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
So, sort of Chris Jericho's coronation is that he just beat The Rock, an already monumental feat for a guy that had just been in the WWE for no more than a year.
I think it was like just a little... When did that take place?
Sometime in 2000.
Okay, so he had just
At
been there
Vengeance.
barely a year. If under, no, he was in there under a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so it was at Vengeance. He beats The Rock. Stone Cold comes out, and he beats Stone Cold, two of the top guys in the business, and becomes the first ever undisputed champion.
And the only person to ever beat The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, the one thing we take away from this is that Chris Jericho wanted to be in the WWE really bad.
It's true.
So, do you think... Now, the question really is, if the timing had been different, if, like, let's say he came in 2001, do you think he would have had as much of an impact on WWE as he did when coming in at the new millennium?
As it pertains to the Monday Night Wars, or
In general.
in general?
Well, both. It's more in general terms, but it can apply to both.
In aspect of WCW Monday Night Wars terms, no, because the war was over by then.
Right.
Right.
In general.
In general,
I think he was a strong enough character that he could have pulled it off. Even without the whole millennial thing.
well, you look at today. Look, he would be like an AJ Styles kind of guy to me. At that
Right.
point. I mean, come on, AJ Styles. Look at AJ Styles today. AJ Styles is probably one of the best in the world at what he does, if not the best in the world at what he does. And he's 38 years old, and he's been doing it. He was WWE wanted him for so many years, but he was just afraid. He was afraid they weren't going to use him right, so he did not come to WWE.
Right.
So he stayed away. Thank God he stayed away, because I mean, me and Johnny always have these discussions, and I know we're off topic of Chris Jericho, but it kind of falls into the same line. I'm not going to lie to you. Because we could be having this conversation. We could have had, if we were at that age, we probably could have had this conversation about Chris Jericho as well.
Right.
If Chris Jericho probably would have come in after the Monday Night Wars, he probably would have been the top guy. Because who was there? Jericho, or Stone Cold Steve Austin was pretty much done at that point.
Right.
Triple H was now the guy, essentially, if that makes sense. Triple H and probably Chris Jericho would probably have one of the best feuds going in WWE.
And to touch on what you just said there, Mega Super Lionheart, guess what? Most of the top WCW guys that actually mattered to the company, when that little thing started happening, they sat on their asses at home waiting for their WCW contracts to run out first.
Yeah.
So, no, he wouldn't have gotten lost within the shuffle.
He wouldn't. Nope, he wouldn't have.
Realistically, when I look at this, you know, by the time that Jericho came over, the Monday Night War was on the downtrend.
Yep.
Yes.
I personally think that Jericho going to WWE is what killed it off. Because not long after that, you started having Dean Malenko. You started having Eddie Guerrero coming over. He started about this time when the ratings were really bad for WCW. He was having the promos with Stephanie McMahon, doing the whole you were a hoe kind of
I know. What did he call her?
Oh God, there's so many different things.
I can't remember. One of my favorite. I can't remember. I have to go back and see if I can find it. He calls her something. He doesn't call her a hoe, but he calls her. I can't remember. It was so funny because he would say it and she would look at him.
She was actually stunned for like a second, so it was just like, wait, what did you just say?
Well, one I liked the most he said with Stephanie was, instead of letting my bodies hit the floor, more like letting my boobies hit the floor.
I mean, it was just his shit. His fucking promo skills were. Once he, when he did what he did to The Rock, I thought, oh my god, this guy is going to probably be the mouth of the WWE when fucking Rock leaves.
Probably yes.
And Roman Reigns needs to take fucking lessons from Chris Jericho.
Oh my god!
Just saying.
You're gonna trigger my headache again. I was doing just fine. I know that we actually went through this episode pretty quick. I mean, this was such a straightforward episode. You know, there's really not a lot to take away from it except for the one thing, that kind of correlation between what went on back then and today was the fact that, you know, his drive is so much different to what we get today.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, was the big takeaway from this episode. I do believe, me personally, like, I have my top 5 guys. We all do. We all have our top 5. We all know, my number 1 and number 2 always flip-flop.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, Undertaker. Chris Jericho is my 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Solid third guy. I would also go with The Rock and Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
Those are my top 5 wrestlers that I absolutely adore.
I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna put Chris. Look, I've been watching wrestling since I was 7.
We've had this debate before.
I'm 45. I know, but we're talking about this. He's just outside my top 5. Just outside. He's right there. Just because I can't. Stone Cold's my number 1. Just because of the fucking gimmick that he had. He was the everyday man that he was the guy that if I was having a bad day at work on a fucking Monday, I could come home and watch him beat the fuck out of Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
It'd make me feel better about myself. It was weird, but that's what Stone Cold did. Chris Jericho, probably 6. I could flip-flop 6 and 5. I mean, I've got Randy Macho Man Savage. I'm sorry, I'm putting Hulk Hogan in there. Hulk Hogan was a big influence on the fucking business, whether people like it or fucking not. Whether or not he said the word that he said, which he did, I don't care what he said. He's still a major influence on the business. There wouldn't be fucking wrestling today if it wasn't for him. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry. There wouldn't be such a thing as a fucking promo if it wasn't for fucking Hulk Hogan. Okay? Undertaker's up there, top 5. I mean, I've got Jericho like right at 5A, 5B, 6, somewhere in there.
Right.
I can't put him in my top 5 because I've been watching wrestling a lot longer.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Good talk. Bobby, what about you? What would you say your top 5 are?
Well, before I do that, can I please explain my theory here how fast?
Yeah,
whatever,
go ahead.
Bob, you're good.
Okay. If the Y2J gimmick wouldn't have worked, if he came in later than the Millennium, I think they would have gave him the CM Punk Best in the World gimmick.
Well, he did. He did use it. He was the first one to use it. He used it before CM Punk used it.
CM Punk was the best in the world. Chris Jericho was, I am the best in the world at what I do.
So essentially it's the same thing, they just worded it differently.
Right, exactly. In fact, a lot of your superstars copied a lot of Chris Jericho's stuff. Realistically.
I don't.
Alright, and
let it go, Lionheart. I just wanted to throw out there my top 5. That's all we're doing. We're not talking about Hogan.
is this Is this top 5 including women wrestlers too?
Nope, go with males. Because this is about Chris
Okay.
Jericho.
Dang it. Because you know who would be in there.
Yeah, that don't make sense to me though. But go ahead.
Go ahead.
My top 5 would legitimately be Stone Cold, John Cena, The Rock, Triple H, and probably Chris Jericho.
Okay. That's not a bad list, actually. Not a bad list. I wouldn't put John Cena there, but that, hey, you know, there's a list for a reason.
John Cena's in my top 10, easily. He's right behind Jericho for me.
Yeah, John Cena would be in my top 10 as well.
I mean, you look at who's had an influence. That's where I put all of my. That's where I put my ratings. Who's had the most influence on the business? Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Chris Jericho, John Cena, The Undertaker, Ric Flair, Bruno Sammartino, Sting. The list goes on and on and on. So
Sting is actually my number 6.
Yeah, I mean, you could go. I named off 8 fucking guys right there that had an influence on the business in the era, within the era that we're essentially talking about.
Especially with Sting, because he, as we're going to find out later on with the later episodes, between him and The Undertaker, they were the two loyalists of the entire business.
Episode.
Right, we'll find out that a lot later, so that's why you got to tune in every week, guys, for Wrestling Memories. We're up to 30 episodes. I mean, this is amazing. We're up to 30 episodes. We're well on our way to 50. And, of course, thank you to everybody, the 14 people watching right now. I might be wrong about that, but I'm on the YouTube, so I can't see the actual number. And thank you to everybody in the chat.
We are at Monday Night Jericho. Next week is The Rock. The War Gets Electrified. The next episode after that is The Divas Gone Wild. The next episode after that is The War Goes Mainstream. And that has to do with celebrities.
Right.
Then we get the Sting and The Undertaker.
So we got ways to go.
And then we get into towards the end. We have 5 episodes to go, and how WC will really get into the nuts and bolts of what killed WCW.
Right. And right now in wrestling, right now in this Monday Night War, they're really focusing on key players.
Yep.
In the Monday Night War, and a lot of these guys are again, to me, the most shocking one for me so far was Bill Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most shocking for me, and which is kind of like I don't want to say that this episode about Chris Jericho was a bad episode. It wasn't a bad episode, but we knew about this already. Chris Jericho's history is very well documented.
Mm-hmm. It's all over both brands.
Yeah, and unfortunately you will never get that. That is never going to happen.
What's that?
Sting versus The Undertaker.
No, that's never gonna happen. Sting can't wrestle anymore anyway.
They should have done, if they were going to do that, they should have done it at WrestleMania 31.
They should have done it instead of doing Triple H versus Sting. They should have done it.
They should have done it. If they were going to do that, they should have done.
And that could have been where Sting or where Undertaker lost his streak. I don't think they would have done it, but in fact, well, he could lose a streak. But they could be a double count out or whatever. Neither one wins. That's where the streak ends. I would have been okay with that.
It's funny in how, in hindsight, And we can also get into like so I know that we blew through this episode really quick. So we'll go with this. What were your guys' favorite moments of Chris Jericho?
My favorite moment?
And it doesn't have to protect, and it doesn't have to be within the time frame of the Attitude Era.
Mine is, and it's the night that he came out, the night he debuted, man. When he came out and fucking had The Rock standing there with his mouth wide open, like, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, what? Nobody ever expected that to happen. I expected The Rock to shut him up. I mean, The Rock did finally say, it doesn't matter with the whole fucking thing, but he still had that fucking moment where he had The Rock standing there dumbfounded. Why is this motherfucker out here? And it was all work, and Rock played his part great. It put Jericho over. The pop he got was just so... It's something you don't see today.
Yeah, you don't see it at all.
And that pop that fucking Dean Ambrose got was forced. It's forced. What Jericho got was fucking organic.
You know what's funny is Chris Jericho has left and come back more times than any other superstar in the business.
And he still gets that fucking pop every
and
fucking
he gets
time.
a monster pop every single time. He gets, like, we always compare it, like, I know you and me do it a lot. We always compare pops to Stone Cold pops.
Yep.
Jericho is the guy that equals Stone Cold and pop.
And The Rock. Stone Cold and The Rock and Chris Jericho, they get... And sometimes The Undertaker, but The Undertaker's pops are a little different because everybody's standing there in awe of what's going on.
Right.
The Chris Jericho, the Stone Cold, and the fucking Rock pops are so... I mean, they're so deafening. It's not even funny.
Right. The last time that we saw another superstar get a monster pop like that was actually Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I mean he still doesn't quite get the pop that you.
Not anymore, but I'm saying that the WrestleMania 30 era.
Yeah, that was a big pop. That was a really big pop. In fact, that's one of my great WrestleMania moments right there. Is him winning the title.
Bobbit, what about you? What was your favorite Chris Jericho moment?
It's really harder for me to narrow it down to just one because I've enjoyed everything that Chris Jericho's done. But two really stand out in my mind. The one where him and Christian was feuding with the Dudley Boys, and the Dudley Boys steals their fucking bags, and Chris Jericho has that jar of ass cream.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was pretty good.
That's pretty good. Still to me to this day.
But Chris Jericho, look, and I'll go back to this. I don't mean to interrupt you, Bob, but look at what Chris Jericho can do. He can do comedy. He can do serious. He can do it all.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, some of his comedy segments are some of the best. Like him and Kevin Owens were so good together. I mean, it was sad to see them two not be in a program together. I know they had to move on from it, but oh my God, them two were so fucking amazing together. Their segments were fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah, that Heather, what about you?
The painting,
the best friend painting. Oh my God.
I mean, that was even though that moment turned into one of the shocking moments. It was a shocking moment.
That was when KO turned, yes.
The night that KO turned on fucking Chris Jericho, I didn't see it. That's one thing I did not see coming was that turn. I thought they were going to be like all buddy, and I'm like, holy shit.
That to me, that moment brought back so many memories. Mm-hmm. Like that was a definite Attitude Era style throwback.
Mm-hmm.
Heather, that was your favorite moment?
Yes.
Okay. Mine is actually two. I have two because I can't narrow it down to
Fucker,
one.
you said one, you son of a bitch.
Just pick one, damn it. That's all you're allowed.
Go ahead.
Well, if I had to pick one, I have to pick this because I just have to. The creation of the list.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love the list creation.
The list gimmick is my favorite moment of Jericho. I mean, come on! It was so memorable to me that it gave rise to the most popular gimmick on the Cole Bone Show.
Right. Let's look at this. He got inanimate fucking objects over. Yeah. He got Mitch, a fucking potted plant, over when he destroyed it. He got a clipboard over by just saying you just made the list.
And a pen click.
And the pen click. He got a fucking scarf over.
What was so funny about that pin click is he would just hold it there for a minute. And what was so amazing about that, the crowd would just get so louder and louder and louder, and just in anticipation of him to click it. Ronnie Lee brought up a good point. He got the word "it" over.
He did.
With the finger points.
Inanimate objects. He got his vest over, the lighted vest. When it got destroyed, he got that over. It's like this guy can get inanimate objects over.
Just like the.
Now I will say this. I just saw it in the chat. The one thing that did annoy me is the way he said "again."
Again, yes.
Again.
Yes, it's words. He got words over. It's the opposite of what Rusev is.
Yeah.
To me, Rusev didn't get Rusev Day over. Aiden English did.
That's right.
Chris Jericho got himself over, or he could get it. I guarantee it. He could get an A&W root beer bottle over.
Oh, without a doubt.
All right. Well, like the one that sticks out to me the most is the
No, it's just some of the stuff that the guy did. It's not even. He doesn't make anything about him, even though he does say it's about me. It's honestly not about him. It's about what he's talking about. Take A&W root beer bottle, for instance. He could get an A&W root beer bottle over by saying... He trips over an A&W root beer bottle, it just made the list. So he's getting two things over in one shot.
Yeah.
That is you are right there, Wise Society. They did try that, and it's because of the way he's been portrayed.
Yeah.
We're talking about Roman Reigns. They tried it. They tried it, and it did not fucking work. They were trying... And when I'm saying they're trying to get him over, they're trying to get him over as a face. It's not fucking working. People think... Yes, Roman is over. He doesn't need the push. He's already there. They're going to give him the title. He hasn't got to fight for it. It's the same thing as the fucking argument I had today about fucking Ronda Rousey. She didn't have to fight for it.
Right.
She was handed it. Roman Reigns is the same fucking thing. Vince sees what he wants and he goes after it. That's what he does. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He don't care if they're fucking over. And I honestly don't think he gives a shit about merchandise sales or how many fucking Twitter followers he has. I really don't.
No.
Sorry, went off on a tangent there.
To go back on your inanimate objects thing, he's getting over. Hey, dude, he's getting the word "fuckface" over in New Japan.
He's getting who over?
The word fuckface.
Oh, fuckface, yeah. That was funny in itself. What are you laughing at, fuckface? I mean,
You
guy,
stupid idiot!
The guy, and that's another thing. So many quotes from this guy people use today.
That's the thing that always kind of amazed me is that there are just so many memorable quotes and moments that he did. It's hard not to put him when you argue about when you get into the discussion about the greatest wrestlers of all time, and especially when you get into from the Attitude Era specifically.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard not to include Jericho in that conversation.
You are exactly right, my friend. If you want to include anybody in anything, Jericho has to be included. He may not be in your top 10. If he's not, you're a fool, because he is one of the best superstars that wrestling has ever seen. He is in that category. He's up there with the Stone Colds and the Rocks and the fucking Undertakers and the Stings and the John Cenas and fucking Randy Ortons. And I throw Randy Orton in there too. His heel work is probably some of the best heel work ever.
Him as a heel is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this was my thing. I've always been a Randy Orton fan. I like him better as a heel. But I also think he is one of the best in-ring workers in the business.
I agree.
He's one of the best. He can make anybody look good. He had a little bit of trouble with Jinder, but...
Well, everybody had a little trouble with Jinder.
Jinder.
I mean, look at his match. The guy is 47, and look at the match that him and Omega had.
I know. And
look at the match that him and Naito had. And he's 47 years old and is able to still fucking do that shit. That's pretty amazing. Although I would not have him do that all the time.
Right.
So yeah,
but the fact that he can still go like that,
yes,
it is amazing. Well, and you know, that's why I'm not so critical of wrestlers in their 50s or getting close to their 50s that still want to wrestle. I mean, because look at Vader. Vader wrestled well into his 50s and 60s.
Yeah,
Flair did the same thing.
He died.
Yep.
You know, it just depends on how healthy these guys are. And so I think that goes back to what I know mine and JP's issue with the Undertaker. They keep on bringing back the Undertaker. Undertaker's not healthy. Now I will say this: we do not know, because the last time we saw him was at the Greatest Royal Rumble, and that was just after his surgery.
Mm-hmm. Well, just after his surgery was
WrestleMania.
Right.
But he was doing a little more during his match at the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Right. So, for me, like we're completely getting off the Chris Jericho thing at this point, but for me, it's really hard to gauge how well that match is going to be received because we realistically don't know how well the Undertaker's going to be able to move.
And if it's anything like Greatest Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, probably not very well.
Not very well. But I will say this, he has had a little more time to get used to the new hips.
Mm-hmm.
And no, that's not a fucking joke, everybody. He had hip surgery. Grow up, fucking people. But, so, I'm like you. I just want Undertaker to retire. The streak is over. That he's done everything possibly. I want to remember him the best, as he was. But I am going to withhold judgment until I actually see the match.
Mm-hmm. You already know how I feel.
Oh no, I know how you feel.
I'm not watching.
I guess with me, it's always it. Like I am, like Oh, me. We talked about this at length. I feel the exact same way as you do. I don't want to remember him in a negative way or a lesser way, but I just can't help myself.
Right.
If he's on TV, because I think the difference is you were a little bit older when Undertaker started becoming prominent. For me, I grew up on Undertaker.
So
like
did I.
Little tight guy watching the Undertaker. So for me, it's kind of hard to not want to see him wrestle because of the fact I grew up on him.
Right.
And so.
Shit.
What?
We'll see in a minute.
Oh, I'm always I'm in agreement with the sentiment of most of the wrestling commentators and the podcasters that he needs to retire. I'm fully supportive of that. But if they are going to put it on TV, I just can't help but watch.
I know. I get why people want to see him. I just don't think it's fair to him that they do that
not.
shit.
It's not. But I will, in hindsight of that, I will say this. I will. This is the only thing I'll say about it. Is I'm pretty sure if Undertaker really didn't want to do it, I think he'd have the power to tell him no.
I think he does, and that's why I put the onus on him. If he wants to continue to put his fucking body through this shit, I don't want to see the guy at his fucking Hall of Fame induction in a fucking wheelchair. Because his fucking hips, even though he had hip replacement surgery, I don't give a shit how getting new hips. My grandma got new hips, and she was in a fucking wheelchair no more than two years later.
Right, and well, actually, we had this discussion. We kind of had this discussion last night.
And Undertaker is still not. What do you mean he's still money? I don't understand what you mean by he's money. Do you mean he's still a good wrestler? And no, I don't want to see him have another run with the belt because WWE fucking the belt's on fucking Roman Reigns. Why in the fuck would they have fucking Undertaker run with the belt?
Connor just said it the best.
Thank you, Connor. I appreciate that. That's what I've been trying to tell everybody for like ever. Appearance. I don't mind an appearance. I don't mind an attack, but match is a completely different fucking animal for me.
Right, and we had this discussion on Tuesday night where, of course, anybody that watched SmackDown Tuesday, Eric Rowan and the Bludgeon Brothers lost the tag team titles to New Day, more or less because Eric Rowan was hurt. Legitimately hurt.
Yep.
And me and JP are in agreement on this. These guys have some severe dedication issues. Some of these guys, it's like, take a fucking breather, man.
Well, Ric Flair is a prime example of that.
Mega Super Lionheart, I don't think it's the main event. It's just one of the matches in the show. They haven't even announced half the fucking matches yet. It's a pay-per-view.
Right, and we also discussed that a little bit Monday. The thing about no, we didn't discuss this Monday. We were talking about this off air.
Right.
We were discussing something else on Monday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Actually, we can get into that.
You want to? I'm all for it. I do want to say we have to we can talk about it for about 15 minutes.
Right, and then we're gonna head on over to the Tattoo Mistress's Raging Ink channel.
Yes, that platform is going to be coming back very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited for that platform because I get to.
So the point that I was going to make is that there is one thing that I think a lot of, especially the American fans, are kind of forgetting when it comes to this show in Australia. Oh yeah. Now, granted, our opinions still remain the same. That we don't want to see him wrestle anymore. However, there was some, and I can't remember who put the tweet
Jesus,
out.
I'm sorry. Fucking Reed Connor's fucking safe.
But this is why we love OK Fabe.
Now this is the one I can't remember who put the tweet out, but it did make a lot of sense. I don't agree with it, but it did make a lot of sense.
Right.
Is I think what a lot of us American viewers are forgetting is that them going over to Australia for this Super Showdown, a lot of Australians have never seen Undertaker, Triple H in a live match. In fact, a lot of the matches that they're getting, the Australians have never seen live.
Right.
So I don't agree with it, but I see why WWE is doing it.
I as well.
And
OK Fabe said Undertaker returns in a handicap match. Not 2-on-1, him in a wheelchair. But the wheels are on fire.
does he have? No, that would only work if you see lightning sparks on the spokes. So, you told me to talk about it.
Go ahead, talk about it, man.
So, Monday, I went on a tangent. And of course, granted, I do got to remind everybody, on the live reaction review shows, I play Johnny Sinister is a character. I'm supposed to be amped up. So I went on this tangent, but I still hold this belief. Is what I am tired of more than anything. Look at who your top guys are right now. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, and one of the ladies, Charlotte Flair. Most of these people have been getting a push for over a year plus. When you look at the Shield, it's been longer than that. These guys have been in the title picture multiple times within the past 3 or 4 years. I am so tired of this. I would love to have something different. I stated it about like Charlotte Flair. People were like, "Hey, if Charlotte Flair," people were shitting on me because I did not like the fact that Charlotte Flair won. Well, here's why I didn't like Charlotte Flair won. Let me explain to you how I would have booked that SummerSlam match. How that would have played out. You still have the triple threat: Carmella, Charlotte, Becky Lynch. Okay? But instead of Charlotte winning, Becky Lynch pins Charlotte. She becomes champion. If you still wanted to do the heel turn, which everybody wanted, two things that everybody wanted: a Becky Lynch heel turn and a Becky Lynch with the belt. So what you could have done, what WWE could have done, is they could have given Becky the belt, and when they hugged it out, went away, Becky, instead of slapping Charlotte, could have hit her with the belt.
Yep.
And then played off the story of, how dare you make it harder on me? How dare you? And that would have gotten her a little bit more heat, I feel, because then you would have felt a little more sorry for Charlotte, because it would have been a much more brutal attack. But what did they do? They gave her Charlotte the Roman treatment. They put the title right back on her.
Yep.
Here's the funny thing about that. AJ Styles. Good Lord, the last time I talked about AJ Styles, I pissed off a whole bunch of people on this one. A whole bunch of people, and I don't care. Okay? My point still stands. AJ Styles, as much as I love AJ Styles, I think he's one of the best in-ring performers in the company today. Okay? He's been champion for the better part of a year now. And the question I pose to people that nobody can answer except for recently.
I agree with kayfabe though, with what he's saying. And
What?
Mega Super Lionheart. I am fucking cool. I am the Cobone Show. This is my channel. Upper right hand corner. I'm pointing at it. I'm pointing at it. That's Johnny. The guy in red is Bobbit. All right. So calm your shit, son.
Our names are all in the description. All you had to do is go and look at that.
Actually, Kate, the one thing I was going to say to Connor is I actually agree with you. I think we did need the Becky heel turn, but what I'm saying is make her heel and champion.
I didn't want that all to happen all in the same night once I had seen that it became a triple threat. I wanted it to be that Charlotte gets it
that's
first,
just
causing the
my
heel turn, and then Becky becomes champion.
If that
It will.
But the one that we talked about is that Randy Orton is looking like probably the most plausible to take off the title with AJ. My point was, for the longest time, is who could beat AJ? Because up to this point, he's beaten everybody there is. And, you know, it was just, for me, it's not that I don't like these guys and gals.
Right.
It's not that I don't like these guys and gals at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just wanted something different for a change. Something that you know, like I said it earlier on a video today. I would love a Finn Balor title run, if only for about 6 months, just to give us something different. No, actually, E. Connor, the thing that pissed people off is I compared Lesnar to AJ.
Yep.
Because I said, who's beating Brock Lesnar? Okay, Roman Reigns beat him at SummerSlam. Nobody gives a shit. Up until SummerSlam, nobody beating Brock Lesnar. Nobody beating AJ. You had 2 champions that hadn't been beaten in over a year.
But actually, Johnny, that's not entirely right. You mean beat him for the title, yes. However, Nakamura did need to beat AJ to get the stipulation.
He did. But I'm
talking about when it mattered.
Right.
Right.
When it mattered, nobody could beat AJ. Nobody could beat Brock. It was the same scenario. The only difference is AJ was there every week.
Here's what I think, and everybody's like, good God, no. Please not again. I threw it out there that Randy Orton takes the title off of fucking AJ Styles at Royal Rumble. John Cena wins the Elimination Chamber, challenges Randy Orton for the title, and beats him at WrestleMania. Now, hear me out. That doesn't mean that John Cena is going to have a 12-month reign. It's going to be like a 2-month reign. And then they'll take the title and they'll put it on fucking Rusev.
No.
Let Rusev run with the title.
No.
I'm just throwing a name out there.
I know. But no.
That's all. I mean, that's what I would do.
Well, Lion, we've already seen the belt on him for a while, because also the fact that WWE 2K19 has him on the cover.
Right, and which I understand why they've kept the belt on AJ, but my thing has always been I like change up. Mm-hmm. The thing with the Attitude Era is that you never know who is going to be on top.
That's true.
It changed a lot. So, you know, who would have ever thought Mick Foley would have had a title run? Who would have ever thought Chris Jericho, the guy we were talking about tonight, was going to be the first ever undisputed champion? It's stuff like that I want to see again. right now we've got a very formulaic, repetitive storyline.
Okay, Fabe, I get what you're saying, but then they've been trying to get that Japanese demographic. Why didn't they push the
Nakamura.
button on Nakamura?
Or Asuka.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but to say that they're trying to get this demographic and that demographic, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to actually sit down and talk to you, Connor, to figure out what you figure that out. But it's just one of those things. The way I see it, if they were gonna pull it, they should have pulled the trigger on. We know, Bob. They should have pulled.
One
the
second,
trigger.
guys. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Thank you. They pulled the trigger on Nakamura and Asuka, but they didn't. So I don't know if them. Oh, actually, we're gonna talk about that here in a minute. So yeah, I don't see. It's just me. I don't think it has to do with the demographic thing in the title, because they went to India and then they pulled the title off of gender. So I don't think it's about demographic in the title. I really don't. That's just me. That's just me. I could be wrong. It's just my observation, I guess.
They killed Asuka, poor girl. What?
No, it's true.
Oh.
Nah, I don't want Jeff. I don't want Jeff. Not right now. I'd have
So-
a deal. I could see Almas and Jeff Hardy. I do like Connor's idea of Almas sooner or later, but I don't know. I don't know about now.
I could not.
So with that being said, guys, does anybody want to give final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Fuck the Shield.
Say that.
That's all I'm saying. I am so sick of the same old, and the same thing happened Tuesday night with the fucking New Day. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Let's start with something new. I hope they're just pushing the reset button on shit and fucking going from there. Because I said this at fucking WrestleMania. They push the reset button and then go from there, and they didn't fucking do it. Now we're stuck doing this shit. They're pushing the reset. I hope they're pushing the reset button now. But the next big pay-per-view is goddamn Survivor Series, which is a fucking haggis. Survivor Series, which is a goddamn exhibition pay-per-view, is all it is. There's nothing they're fighting over, unless they actually do something. That's why too many fucking pay-per-views.
All right, Heather.
It's just, they need to do something major because, again, ratings is key,
It is.
and they're losing their ratings.
Oh God, don't trigger my headache.
No.
I'm just gonna leave it right there.
Bobby, what about you?
I want to hear.
I like the Shield. That is all. No. Yeah, but yeah, I do honestly like the Shield. I just don't like the way that they currently done it. So yeah. And also, have a good night, y'all. And remember, Summer Bob's is tomorrow.
Yes.
Will there be an OK Fatal appearance? Maybe.
And we will do this week in wrestling right before that. I've got enough to talk about. And yes, I'm gonna fucking talk about it whether anybody wants me to or not.
So with that, my final thoughts are, which will actually be about what the original topic is. So I don't know how we got on the whole fucking Shield thing, but no. Chris Jericho, one of the most memorable wrestlers of all time, had a huge impact on the business and still has a major impact on the wrestling business today. And fuck the Shield.
And fuck the Shield.
But with that being said, guys, be sure to head on in about 15 minutes. We're going to head on over to the Tattoo Mistress channel. She's going to be going live here very soon as we hang up here. So be sure to go check her out. Share some love. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. All that good stuff. I am Johnny Sinister. I hope I'm pointing in the right. No, I got to point this way.
There you go. I did the
Hey,
same thing.
He's JP Baker and Tattoo Mistress and Paige. He is the legendary Foulmouth Mike Bobbitt, and I am the king of timeout. Johnny Sinister, you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Oh, we really appreciate it. Tune in next week for the next installment, episode 31 of Wrestling Memories. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Love you guys. Talk to you later.